It's astonishing.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Three, two, one, action.
Hello everyone, welcome to ProAV. Thank you very much for joining us for another stream with Blackmagic. I'm joined once again by Simon. How are we, Simon?
I'm not too bad, Carl. How are you?
Good. I'm very good too. And we've got another friend joining us today. Hello, James.
How are we doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
All right. Thank you very much for letting me come.
No problem at all. Thank you for taking the trip down here, both of you. I mean, it's always great to have you guys in, and particularly for this one because I've been wanting to do something on the whole cloud side of, well, to be honest, lots of your products, but primarily Resolve for a long time because it's a challenging subject. I've sort of tried to brainstorm out videos and things like that in the past, and it's hard. It's hard to communicate this stuff, right? And it's changing so frequently. It must be an area you get an awful lot of confusion about from customers, right?
Yeah. There is kind of a lot of confusion because people go, so you've got a cloud, so am I streaming media from the cloud? Where's the project? And you sort of go, right, and you just need to explain it to you. But as you say, it's not a short explanation. But once you get your head around the cloud and what it's doing, it becomes second nature. Absolutely. So it's just sort of understanding what's happening at the beginning that gets you ready for what's going to come next.
I mean, I had, to be perfectly honest, I'd looked at Blackmagic Cloud when it had come out, and then I'd gone, okay, cool. And I hadn't looked at it again for 6 months, probably even a year after that. And then all it took was about a 10-minute conversation with you when I went, oh, wow, that's changed a lot, and I could actually use that a huge amount in just even what we do here. Like, we make relatively simple YouTube videos, and I reckon we could use that.
Yes.
You know, it's useful. It's really useful, no matter what. I think quite often people's temptation on cloud stuff is to think, well, it's only the big, big server racks and network attached storage and all this kind of stuff in order to make any of that work. What is the point? It's not for people like me.
Yeah.
But that's just not this at all, is it?
It's not this. I mean, but the beauty is it's scalable. You can, if you want, go and do your own custom systems with big racks and network servers and all of that sort of stuff. But also, as he says, you can literally... I mean, we have people who collaborate sort of with themselves. So they'll kind of go, right, I'll work on a machine, but my project's in the cloud, then go onto another machine and open it up and it downloads the media and you carry on. So
sort of a way of keeping your desktop and your laptop in sync.
Yes, exactly that, yeah.
It's so basic.
Yeah. And so that's the beauty of it. It's sort of this scalable thing where you can go from literally one person or a couple of people all the way up to, hundreds of users. And you'll see today with what James and I are going to do, it's just how easy it is that for me, because when we talked about doing cloud and networking, and it was a lot of this was sort of again born about out of lockdown.
Sure.
And I know James and I tried to set up sort of project servers on AWS, and James is really good, and I was looking at it going, I have no idea what you're doing at this point. And then for me, I was kind of going, okay, imagine trying to explain this to somebody else. And again, I think as a company we looked at that and went, right, how can we make this easy for people? Because as you know, we're all about accessibility. We're about making things easy. And I think with cloud now, in the fact, well, again, I'll explain it, but now you can sort of have your projects and your media side by side. It makes life so much easier.
Absolutely. So before we get started with the presentation, let's go through the setup we've got here a little bit. But before we do that, anyone watching this, if you've got any questions, anything that you want us to elaborate on, anything you weren't quite sure on, anything that you want to steer the conversation in one way rather than another, I can see the live chat as we go. I can bring the live chat up like this on stream. So leave anything while watching it live in the live chat, and I will bring it up as relevant as we go. But I think it's important for this one to understand a little bit what we've got here and why we've got two of you and what's happening here. So you've each got a MacBook which has got Resolve on it. Now these two are not connected in any way. You haven't got a hard drive that you're both sharing, nothing like that. You've just got completely standalone machines, each connected to the internet. Yes, you're in the same room right now, but you could just as easily, one of you being Japan.
Yes,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, James could be on the other side of the world at this point. It wouldn't make a difference. So as you say, just that network, all my media is on this little GTEC drive here, just a simple drive. So that's the setup. But you'll see, all you need is an internet connection.
Fantastic. let's
Okay, yeah. So,
where do we start? There's
well,
so much
we'll
with this.
start. I think we'll start because, and again, this is I'm going to start with camera and then I'll sort of come back to it.
Okay.
Because I think there's been a lot of interest generated around cloud with our ability to record on our cameras and drop it directly into the cloud.
Yes.
So, we took a look at a traditional post workflow like this is, you have your original rushes from the camera. What you do is you transfer them from the camera. And then what you do, they might sit on a big server. And then somebody creates the proxy files and they go off to edit. And some of the camera originals get pulled off into the VFX workflow. And then you conform those back in and reconnect the camera originals. And, I'm very simplifying what is quite a complex workflow. And this is how post always used to do it. But then with things like file sharing systems, I've chosen Dropbox as an example, but there are hundreds of different file sharing systems out there. So, the idea was you shoot on camera, you get the rushes, but then you do a proxy creation, maybe in a lab or even on set. And then the proxy files go into Dropbox to your editor, who again could be on the other side of the world. The camera originals are shared through Dropbox to your VFX team, and then you conform them back together, and then you go into, grading, audio mastering. And again, it's quite complicated. Whereas now what we've got is a workflow that's really easy because you shoot on the camera, it records a Blackmagic RAW file and a proxy file side by side on the camera. You can then choose to share the proxies or the camera, or share the proxies, or both. It'll send the proxies first and then the camera original straight into the cloud, straight into Resolve. So there's none of this sort of waiting and conforming and doing separate proxy generation. We have a proxy generator, which you can do, but the cloud can automate all that for you. And then you've got colorists and VFX artists and audio engineers and editors all working in the same project at the same time. So we were talking about it earlier when there's no final project _ V111. Everybody's in the same project.
Copy of final project. Yeah,
exactly. So, and this was the whole thing. So with the sort of camera workflow, cloud's sort of taken another step forward, but we'll come back and talk about cameras a little bit later on. Well, I say that, but just to sort of cover this this is the camera range currently that will support a direct cloud upload from the camera itself. And then also what's garnered real people's interest is the Blackmagic camera app for iOS and Android. Obviously it's free. Again, if people haven't tried this, go and download it and give it a try. But again, what we've had is, the reason it's important to mention this, a lot of people said, yeah, I use the app, but I don't seem to be able to get the files into Resolve and I can't understand why. And again, this is what we're going to cover in the cloud. So again, I'll show you on the phone a little bit later on how you can actually record on the camera and it just drop directly into Resolve.
Very cool.
So yeah, so what I thought I'd do is just dig a little bit more into sort of how Davinci Resolve works, because it's kind of important to understand this, because then you can understand what you're looking at in cloud. So basically what you have is you have Davinci Resolve projects, and they sit in what we call a project library now. So think of a project library as just a folder that has lots of Davinci Resolve projects in.
Yep.
Now, feasibly, a project library can hold 1,000 Resolve projects. And the media just sits on your media storage. So like my setup here, I've got my laptop. If I open Resolve and import some media in, Davinci Resolve goes, right, I'll establish a path between where my media sits on this drive and the project in your project library. The reason we use a project library, because unlike other software that just uses a project, you can't have multiple people using the same project at the same time, because you get read and write issues. And this is why we have a project library, because the project libraries are basically a database, so it can allow multiple people in at the same time. And this is what allows for collaboration. So people don't have to worry about exactly what a project library is. Just think of it as a folder of projects, but it allows people access. It allows multiple access. So this is how a single user works in Resolve. You know, anybody using Resolve, this is how you work. When you import the media in, it simply establishes a link between, you know, where your media sits and your project library. Mm-hmm. Now, if, for example, for example, you guys here, if you wanted to have a collaboration but have no cloud, you want things on a local network, for example, well, you can actually do this. You can do it on a local network. So you could take that project library and put it on a project server. So I don't know if people have seen on our support pages, there's a little app called Project Server. And again, it's really easy to set up. And basically you can have a machine that runs the project server on your network, and then everybody just accesses that project server. It's a fairly straightforward process. Doesn't need a really fancy machine to set it up. James, we use a 2014 Mac Mini, I think, for it. Doesn't
10 years old.
Yeah, doesn't need to be anything special, but it runs this project server, so all the machines that are on the network can go, right, I can see this project server with all these projects in, and so multiple users can use them at the same time. What you probably do as well is you might have shared network storage as well. So everybody's pulling media in from the same file path, and so again you can sort of collaborate outside of the cloud. But what a lot of people really and then obviously with file sharing as well, you can sort of start to you could use Dropbox if you want to share files between systems if you so wished. But what people really did want to do was take the workflow sort of out the office. Again, as I said, this was sort of born out in lockdown. So how Blackmagic Cloud initially worked is you had the project library in the cloud that people could all hook into, and then you could share your media however you wished. So, for example, people use Dropbox. But then we've all had this. I mean, I've had it a lot when people give me a project or share a project with me, and I open it up and a lot of the media's offline. And they go, oh, yeah, here's all the media in a Dropbox link, and you download it all, but only half the media reconnects. And then you go back to them to go, have you got everything? And somebody goes, oh, sorry, yeah, we forgot a file. So they then have to load it in again. And then all of a sudden, for
It's
maybe
a lot of faffing, isn't it?
a lot of faffing for 48 hours, all of a sudden you're chasing your media. And again,
if you are in that example of being across the world, all of that has to happen across different time zones, which makes
exactly
it
that.
a long time before you get an answer to the faffing.
Yes, exactly that. And it's just that whole thing of going, reconnecting media, where's the media sitting? All you want it to be just be a seamless workflow. And that's basically what the Blackmagic Cloud, as it does now with its project library and storage, is. It basically, you can share media and share projects seamlessly.
Yeah.
And the easiest way of doing this is to actually explain it.
Sure.
So that was just a little bit of a breakdown to understand what a project library is and, where the media sits, because you'll see in Blackmagic Cloud, they're actually separate elements in the cloud. So
we started there by talking about your cameras, but all of this stuff is completely. If this is just Resolve, you could use this with any brand's cameras and any kind of footage and all the rest of it. This has got nothing to do with the cameras.
Yeah.
So there's camera and cloud, there's the projects being shared, and then there's the media being shared. There's sort of three areas.
Yes.
Have I got that right?
Yes.
Cool.
So again, we'll just show you how it works.
Yeah,
it's
let's
one of these
dive
things. I tried to do lots of slides, and I was like, nope, the easiest thing is for James and I just to show you how all this works. So to begin with, the very, very beginning is setting up a cloud account. So when you come to the Blackmagic homepage, this is what it looks like. And you can see in the top right-hand corner, I've just got a little login icon in here. So if you click on login on the cloud, it'll bring up this page. And again, you can create an account for free. So you just need to collaborate with people, you need a Blackmagic ID. So again, you just need to create an account for free. But once you've done that, you can just simply log in. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to log in. So once you've created an account, and this is what Blackmagic Cloud looks like when you log into it. So the Davinci Resolve here goes back to the Davinci Resolve website page. So if you need some more information, obviously you've got the account settings. Presentations and organizations we'll talk a little bit about later on. James and I'll show you presentations. Organizations may be something I'll talk about right at the end. But as you can see in here, I've got two things. I've got project server and cloud storage. They're the two things I was talking about before. Project server, think project libraries. Cloud storage, exactly that, storage, because you can have one without the other. So basically what you get in a free account, again, if I just go into the account settings and I do a manage plan in here, this is basically what you get in a basic free plan. You get 2 gig of storage, and you have the ability to have presentations. So again, we'll talk about presentations, but basically you can upload a timeline to cloud for review using presentations.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but we'll come to that.
I mean, we're what, 20 minutes in, and I've already found something I knew nothing about at all.
So for Blackmagic Cloud to work, the first thing you need is a project library. So again, if I just click on, I mean, look, I could click upgrade the plan, but if I click on project server, the first thing Blackmagic Cloud will do is say there's no project libraries included in the free plan.
So what does the free plan get you?
So the free plan literally gets you 2 gig of storage, and you can upload presentations basically, and that's everything.
So you can do a bit of the client review stuff.
Yes, but also what it can do, so again, we'll cover this in payment, but basically, if you have somebody who hosts a project library, only they have to pay. So for example, James and I are working together. I'm going to host the project library. Only I have to pay for it. Anybody I invite in doesn't have to pay.
Gotcha. Okay.
So this is why you need a Blackmagic Cloud account. So it can be any email address, password, but then as soon as you've got the cloud account, people can invite you into a project library. So you can have 10 users, including the owner, in one project library. Gotcha. So again, just to show you sort of the cost of this. So if I click on upgrade, this is the pricing. So to begin with, if, for example, you just wanted a project library, you don't want any media storage, you're going to share your media through some other means, you can add a project library, and as you can see, £6 a month will get you one project library.
And that's a project library, not a project. Project library can hold up to 1,000 projects.
Projects, yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but what most people tend to do is you want some storage and a project library. So again, if you adjust the slider, and I just drag this up to 500 gig. So as you can see, I get 500 gig of storage. I get one project library that can contain 1,000 projects, and it's £18 a month.
Okay.
The one thing I clarify with this as well is, you know, we're not a great believer in subscriptions. We're not a company that greatly believes in subscriptions. So this can be cancelled at any time.
Yes, so there's no tying in for 12-year months. None of that.
None of that. So if you just need to collaborate for a few weeks, what you can then do is you can, once you've worked with your projects in the cloud, you can copy them onto your local drive and then quit your cloud account. So again, it's very versatile. So if you don't need it all the time, you can just pay monthly and cancel whenever. So we like to consider it's more of a rental than an actual subscription.
Sure.
So again, you can add project libraries to this. So this is something else you may want to do, because if you invite people into a project library, they can see all the projects in there. But for example, say, you know, Carl, yourself and James, you're my 2 editors, but we've got different client projects. I may want to have a project library for you and a project library for James, so you don't see each other's projects.
Okay.
So again, you can have the option of sort of adding a project library to there.
So within one project library, do you have the control of saying, you know, Carl can see this one, James can see this one, that kind of stuff? It's just everyone that's in that project library can see everything.
It can see everything in the project. So this is why we recommend it. It has been a feature request we've had from people to go, could we not, as you as the project library owner, could you not lock the project down? So, for example, you can see yours, but
private
James
projects
can
almost
see them, but they're all padlocked. So I know that has been a feature request.
Yeah, interesting.
And as you say, even with the cloud stuff, we're still sort of in its...
Oh, it feels like this is evolving and changing almost every month.
It's been developed so much. As I said, in the last sort of 18 months, it's come on so much.
And in terms of that storage, so for when people are trying to gauge how much this might cost them, how much of that storage are they actually going to need? Is that proxies? Is that the entire camera originals? What are you mainly seeing people do that?
So we are mainly seeing people use proxies. So because again, you know, for example, I've got all the camera rushes here on my drive. James, my editor and my audio engineer, actually doesn't need the super high res files. So all I need to do to him is upload the proxy. So again,
and presumably, if in one situation he does, you can just get him the media in a different way if you want to.
Absolutely, I can get him the media in a different way. You can reconnect, or at any point in the cloud project, I can actually say, don't just upload proxies and camera originals. And it's smart enough to know to go, oh, the proxies are already there, so I'm just going to upload the originals straight away, and that's what it does.
So that 500 gigabytes is actually, that's quite a usable amount then. If you're just doing proxies, that's realistic that quite a lot of freelancers, small production companies, that kind of style of user could sit quite happily on that 500 gigabytes a month.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, because you're sharing proxies, again, it's avoiding this, as you say, creating proxies and then having XMLs and AAFs, pulling them back in and reconforming. It's just all
so it's worth pointing out how affordable that is. £18 a month.
Yeah.
You know, I've looked at some of these that cost hundreds of pounds a month, and £18 a month is great.
Yeah, well, again, you know, it's the Blackmagic ethos. We want people to use this. And at 18
you do across
I mean,
everything,
don't get me wrong, it can get silly. If you want a petabyte of cloud storage, you can have £36,000 a month. If you really require that, there's not many people who do.
I don't require that, so I'll put my wallet away.
I think it goes up. There's something wrong, Jamie. It goes up to about 11 petabytes, doesn't it? So for the price of a Lamborghini, you can have 11 petabytes of cloud storage.
Do you have any customers doing that?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. No, I don't know.
One day, maybe.
Yeah, one day. Who knows? Yeah, who knows when resolutions just go crazy? Who knows?
Oh, TD Tackett has put our first question in. Does the cloud project also work with the iPad version of Davinci Resolve?
It does indeed.
All across iPad and desktop?
All across iPad and everything else. On the iPad, it's the same screen for the project library, so you click. So yeah, with the iPad as well. No difference. So you can collaborate between an iPad and £20,000, PC system.
Amazing.
Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch browsers now. So I had to sort of sign into a free browser. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sign in. This is my account now. So
you've got a petabyte on this.
Oh, if only. I'm quite sneaky. In fact, if any of the Singapore guys watching, I've got 10 terabytes, and I got it for NAB because we're sharing a lot of media, and they've forgotten to take it off me. I think.
Don't say that on the live stream.
Sorry. So yeah, no, I've got 10 terabytes. I've got a fairly beefy account.
And so you should.
Indeed. Well, yes, for NAB sharing, you imagine with NAB, we've got huge amounts of projects to share, so it just became easier to have lots of online storage. So once you've signed up to the cloud and you've got pay that £18 a month, so you've got 500 gig of storage and your project library. If you then click on the project server, it'll take you through to any project libraries that you've got. If you don't have a project library, the first screen it'll do is it'll pop up this screen to say, would you like to add your project library? And again, if I call it this, we'll call this ProAV webinar. Now, choosing the region. Now, this is an interesting one. So in an ideal world, you pick the server that's closest to the editor, because the editor's the one that's probably going to make the most changes and do the most stuff. So we found the best performance is you put the server that's closest to the editor. Now, admittedly, for this, we've got London because we're in the same room. But if I had, as you say, an editor somewhere in the Far East, you'd say, well, I'm just going to choose Tokyo.
Fine.
Yeah, simple as that.
But speed is the only difference there.
Speed is the only difference. And then when I say speed, it's not so much you'd notice.
Yeah.
It's not so much you'd notice because, again, what you're doing with the cloud, you're not pulling any media down from it. It's just sending data packets. So the changes that an editor makes is sent up and then it ripples through the project for everybody else.
Okay.
So, again, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add this project server. And hopefully now, because we're live streaming and using the internet, hopefully this won't take too long. This is always the bench test. Oh. Come on. There we go. There we go.
Made me nervous for a
I
second.
know it didn't. It made me nervous for a second. I was like, obviously during rehearsal it went absolutely fine. So as you can now see, it says your project library is empty. You need to go into Resolve to go and create the project library.
Okay.
But
So that step has to be done in the cloud. Oh, sorry, on a browser.
That step has to be done on the browser because you're basically accessing a server that's in the cloud. And also as well, to give access, this is where I invite people in. So if I hit the little I button, I've got an option in here at the bottom that just says share. Mm-hmm. So what I can do is if I hit share, now anybody with an email address that is registered to a Blackmagic Cloud account can be invited into a project. So this is why, signing up for free can be beneficial because people can invite you into your project libraries and you don't have to pay for it.
So that list down the side, those are all different project libraries.
Yes. So what I will do is, let me just invite James into this. So, sorry, JT, I'm exposing your email address to the world.
Being doxed live.
I look forward to receiving unsolicited
Lots
emails.
of tech support emails, I imagine.
So as you can see I've invited James in now, so he's now in my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back. So yes, so you can see in here, these are project libraries that I've already created. So the ones that are mine are the ones without these little kind of sort of node tree in. So these are ones that have been shared with me. So as you can see, I've got
Those
Alistair,
aren't
got
ones
James,
you're paying for.
got Dave, who's part of our US team. Tim Simmons, used to be our sales director. Mm-hmm. So again, these are the ones I've not paid for, but somebody's invited me in. So as you can see, there's a flexibility of being able to do your own, but then also be invited into other people's as well.
Sure. That's good.
So that's about it now. That's all I need to do in the cloud. So now if I fire up Resolve, if I go and fire up the actual application itself, we'll just sort of, again, look at the project library. Because the project library, as you can see, it's got the 3 steps to it. So local is the one that you just use yourself. We talked about the project server that you could put on a local network. That's found under the network tab here.
Okay.
And here I've got cloud. So just click on cloud. And what it's going to do, it's going to go in, and again, it's going to ask me to sign in Resolve. So you've got to sign into the cloud and sign into Resolve. Come on. There we go. There we go. So it's defaulted to that one, however. So if I go into the ProAV webinar, it's actually automatically signed me in. But if normally it would come up to say you've got to sign into your cloud account, but it's signed me in. So here we go. Here's my ProAV webinar. There's the project library that we created. And now what I'm going to do is going to create a project. So if I just double click the project, now this is what you get with a cloud project. And this is actually quite an important window. So the name of the project, obviously, again, we'll call it ProAV Webinar 01, for example. Now, so it's the name of the project. Choose a location for your project media. Now, this becomes important because this folder, it's a folder that can be put anywhere on any hard drive. But basically what it does is it puts a folder structure on my machine that is then mirrored in the cloud, that is then mirrored to James's machine. And again, it's easy just to simply show you how this folder works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put it onto my desktop. So I've got accessibility, it's my work account, I'm just going to put the folder on my desktop. I'm going to allow for multiple simultaneous users. So that means other people can remote into this project.
So with that set to set project to single user, you'd each be able to access that project and get into it, but not at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any situations where you would want to do that?
Potentially, yes. If somebody's actually doing an assemble edit and they don't want anybody else in there once the assemble edit's done, you could actually say, well, I'll come out of it, but then another user goes into it to actually maybe do the grade or do the audio mastering. So there are times, when, on certain workflows, people want the, if you like, the security to go, the peace of mind to go, I finished my bit, so you can go in and do your bit. The synchronization, you can see in here, this is what we're talking about. So you don't have to sync any media at all. So again, if you are sharing media through third-party systems, you don't have to share any media at all. I am going to say sync proxies only, because my editor only needs proxies, but also you've got the option to sync proxies and camera original files. I'm also going to say allow remote camera access. So when I create this, there we go. It's simply created the project. Give it a second. There we go.
While we wait for that, Andrew's put a question saying, is it possible to add more than 10 team members to a Blackmagic Cloud library?
Unfortunately, not at the moment. With organizations, there's sort of a way around this. Again, this has been another feature request that from quite a few people, from quite a few users to go, 10's great, but would it be possible if we could get more? All I can say is, it's been a feature request that has been passed on. So let's see where we get to with that.
Okay.
So just before I do this, so what I want to do now, can you see I've now got this ProAV webinar folder, and at the moment it just simply says camera uploads proxy. Now I've not shot anything on a camera, but now what I'm going to do is simply I'm going to import some media. So where's my project? Here it is. So to begin with, I'll just import a single file. So I've got some media here. What I'm actually going to do as well, just to make this a little bit more straightforward, and so you guys don't have to watch me do it, I'm just going to import a bin structure in here. So we've got several bins for the media. Now, to begin with, what I am actually going to do is I'm just going to grab one file, and I'm just going to drop it into the project. Just going to change the project frame rate. There we go. Now, as soon as I drop the file in, it'll upload it to the cloud. And there it is. So you can see this is B-raw file, but it's uploaded it to the cloud. Again, I'll dig into this a little bit more in just a second, but what I want to do is just show you the folder structure. So if I go back to the Finder, to my desktop, I've got my ProAV webinar in here. So can you now see I've got, let's do it as columns. I've now got the Nitro Cloud folder that was on my hard drive. So basically it's taken the folder structure from my hard drive, and I now have a media folder. Now, can you see the icon for this is an alias file?
Right, so I was literally just thinking, do you need to be careful about storage there? Are you getting multiple things? It's just an alias file.
Yeah, so this is the whole thing. Because I have the media connected to my system, my media file goes, right, I'm not going to duplicate, a terabyte of raw files. I'm just going to create an alias from where it's stored on your system for the structure of the for the cloud sharing. I'm just going to put it into the folder structure of cloud sharing. That's where I'm going to put the media. So now, admittedly, with these files, I've also cheated a little bit. So these files actually have proxy files already created, because again, we didn't want to spend like 10 minutes watching proxy files being created. Also, though, if you remember, I had a setting that said create, basically you can have a setting that says create proxy files automatically. So again, if I just go into my Blackmagic Cloud settings in here, you can see these were all the settings that I had for the initial cloud project. And as you can see, I've got sync proxies only, how I want to create the proxies. And I've also got something that says generate proxies automatically. So you can generate proxies outside of Resolve using our proxy generator. Or if you've forgotten to do that, you can literally drag a file from the hard drive, drop it in, and the first thing it will do is generate proxy media. So can you see there's this little icon here, and it's saying, oh, I'm going to generate the proxy media. So there it is. So in the background, it is generating the proxy files. So as you can see, because this is generating proxy files, it should be done in a second. And then once the proxies generated, it'll automatically upload. So there we go. The proxy generated, and I think in the cloud project, it should start to, here we go. So you can see there's a little icon that you get in the thumbnail that shows the uploading. So it's uploading the proxy.
And bottom right, there's an icon. Oh, it's just gone now. But that cloud thing has a little progress bar.
As a progress bar, exactly that. And again, just to show you the folder structure that we had before, again, if I just go into the webinar, go into Cloud Nitro, go into, I think I'm in columns, let's do it as that. So the proxy generation, you can see it's generated, because it didn't have a proxy file, it's created an alias and generated a proxy file alongside it. So it's quite flexible. You can generate proxy files outside the software, or you can let the software do it for you. But what I'm now going to do is, now I am going to test your internet, because what I am going to do now is I'm going to grab a load. I'm going to grab a load of media and drop these in. And I'm going to drop those in, and I'm going to drop these in as well.
Why not?
And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to drop the audio files in as well. Sorry, James, I think I dropped those all in one folder. So now I'm going to say, so I've now imported all the media to my project, and now I'm going to hand over to James.
So for clarification, at the beginning of this, James, you had none of those files.
Exactly. So I've just got a MacBook, no extra storage, no shared storage, no nothing, just a MacBook and a Wi-Fi connection. And,
Cool. Excellent.
And yeah, so this is now where I'm going to, because this is the most important part of understanding the cloud is just seeing it from both sides. Once you've got it from both sides, then we find that it clicks for people, and they go, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. And I understand how we're synchronizing now. So again, this is my isolated MacBook here with Resolve on it. And,
so we're now seeing James's screen on the box
yes, so
above.
this is my Resolve window here, and you can see I've been working away locally, but as I click to the cloud now, it's going to connect to the Blackmagic cloud.
Grey.
This one.
1 second. Well, I'll tell you what. While all that media uploads, should we troubleshoot that? Why are we just getting a grey?
Is it a screen extension?
Are you extending your screen, or is it are you mirroring your screen?
This
was working half an hour ago.
Yeah. Well, that's chaos.
Oh, there we
isn't
go.
it? Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, well, it's going to be a lot more easier now when you can actually see the user interface, isn't
What's
it?
going on?
Yeah. Okay,
Oh, well, that gave some time for the media to upload.
that was expertly played there, so hopefully we're in with a chance of it synchronizing now. So yeah, I clicked on my cloud tab, and again now I can see the projects that have been shared with me, different selection to Simon, but I can see one of those is this ProAV webinar project. So if I click on that now, again I can see that project there. And I can see the little icon showing that it's a multi-user project. So I can open this for the first time now. And then as a remote user or a collaboratee, I get a slightly different dialogue to Simon. So I only have two choices here. So again, this thing about choosing a location for where the media is going to live, and I'm just going to accept the default for this here, because this is just going to be the standard format for it, standard location. And then again, I've got this decision about how I'm going to synchronize. Now, as we said, there's so many different ways to do this and collaborate with the media. Simon could ship me a drive with all the originals on, for instance, and that's a perfectly valid way to collaborate. If it was a project where I was needed access to the originals, obviously I can synchronize those. But again, in this instance, I'm just going to synchronize the proxies only, because the scenario here is that I'm going to remotely do a quick edit of this project. Okay, so I'm going to hit open now. And again, I get straight into that project. So I'm looking at the same thing as Simon. I can see the list of all the bins here. I can see that Simon's online. I can see his little logo there. And actually, should be able to see the media with a chunk of it offline, but you'll see it's populating in front of our eyes. Because, again, you can see in this sort of sync window here, what's the percentage? Yeah, 40% already. So within a few seconds of opening the project, we're halfway through syncing, and I can literally start auditioning this media at this point. With last few files to sort of pop online, but I could already start auditioning and playing through the clips and seeing what to do. Again, and I've set my playback to prefer proxies because if I'm just doing a rough edit or if I'm going to do audio or something, I'm not interested in the high-res originals. So this is a perfectly valid way to work for me. And so I think we're about there. Let's have a look. 99%. So there we go. Okay, so media's up to date. So at this point, I mean, I don't know how long that took, but less than a minute, I think, or roughly.
Not long.
I'm now, I've now got all this media here. I can work through it. So very quickly, I see exactly the same thing that he does, and I could start to put a timeline together. Now, the only flaw here is I'm not actually an editor. I'm a terrible editor, so I am going to blatantly cheat.
So you're going to do a bad
Absolutely,
timeline.
yeah. Absolutely blatantly cheat and import a timeline so that I don't test everybody's patience here. But we'll use a bit of imagination that I can actually edit. So I'm going to just drag in a timeline here. So if I get one from the desktop, we'll just assume there that this that I've actually created this. But yeah, so here we go. In the timeline's been a very simple edit of this sort of car racing thing. Maybe it's a quick promo or something we're doing for it. So but I could have literally just dragged that media in and started putting that together. But of course, because we're collaborating, everyone involved in the project could see this straight away and start working with it. So, for instance, at this point, this might be at a point where we wanted to review it somehow. If we wanted to get the feedback very quickly on what we think of it. Now, obviously, as I'm collaborating with Simon, he could just open the timeline and have a look himself. But also, I mean, this is something where we could do a formal review, if you like.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is
I might need, but yes, shall I add something as well?
Yeah, as I say, if you want to add something, and then we'll just talk about the rules of editing, so you're not overwriting each other's work all the time.
Yes. Okay. So we wanted to keep it very simple, and but of course, when you're collaborating, you are going to be working with some new media along the way, maybe some VFX shots, graphics, bits and pieces like this. So it isn't just a case of me mirroring what he's doing. I might be, adding new media to the project. Certainly if I'm a sound editor, I'm going to be dropping in effects, ambiances and bits and pieces. And let's say in this scenario, I'm going to drop in some graphics. So again, how does that work? And how do we all stay synchronized with media, yet have different copies of things locally and in the cloud? And of course it's a lot simpler than people might imagine. So I'm going to just find these graphics files, for instance, that we could use at the start of it. So again, just some graphics files, anything supported. I'm just going to drag that into the bin there, and so they'll appear. And again, straight away, next time it does its little sync to sort of catch up, we'll see, there we go, straight away, there's a couple of files to sync, and just in the background there, that sort of sync task will run, synchronize that media. So again, it's the reverse of what Simon had, in that because I have that media locally, it's going to make an alias to it on my machine so we don't duplicate it. But as Simon doesn't have that media, he's going to download it on his machine and have an actual copy locally on his machine. And so that's it. It's not a big deal. There's no sort of versions to track or anything like that, is there? We just drag it in and that's appeared in the project. Same if I was going to do something with audio.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what I'll do is instead, if we just jump back to my machine quickly, just to show the updates that James has done. So, if we now take a look at my machine, there's a couple of things you can see. I've got little refresh symbols next to the graphics and timelines folder in the media pool. So on the graphics, I could just click the graphics folder and it updates to go, okay, those graphics that James added to the project, they've dropped into my project. And because I didn't have the media, if I just simply say reveal in Finder, basically what it's done is that media folder on the desktop it's put the graphics folder in there, but that now actually has media in it because I didn't have it. So the rule is with this media folder is if you've got the files, it'll create aliases. If you don't have the media, it'll just drop the media into this folder. But as I said, the folder, it doesn't have to sit on an internal drive. It can sit absolutely anywhere. So, you know, you could have like a big RAID storage with terabytes on, and the media folders can just sit in there. So as James was saying, because you know you can just sort of sync as you go, you can just add media to a project and forget about it because it'll download for everybody else. The other thing that I did have an update on was in the timelines. So we're going to the timelines bin, and I double click this and open it up. James, do you want to open that timeline first?
Yes.
Let me
I'll
just
close
it. I'll just close it. So as you can see, I can see this is James's built timeline here. So what I can do is I can double click this and open it up. Now, you can see my playhead is grey. Normally the playhead in Resolve is orange, but my playhead is grey. So if you're collaborating in a project, as you can imagine, you wouldn't want two editors working on the same timeline at the same time because somebody trims the clip and the other editor's going, hang on, everything's moving. So they're pulling everything back. So you end up just sort of fighting each other's work. So the rules are that basically if whoever opens a timeline first, it is locked to that user.
And you can tell that because of the little icon and the picture of their face.
Absolutely, yes. So if I make this, let me make the thumbnail annoyingly, it doesn't make your image any bigger. So there we go. As you can see, that's James's little icon to say that he's actually got hold of this timeline. And there's several different workflows. And again, I wish we had more time today because you can dig around the workflows because you can lock certain bins. So if you've completed a timeline, you can put it in a bin. And then you've got an option in here. You can say you've got an option to say lock bin, for example, and it locks it. As you can see, it locks it to the user. So there's a lot of sort of workflow.
And you say that a timeline is locked to the first person that opened it. Is that the same across the different tabs, or is that only inside the edit tab?
That is a very good question. It's basically only inside the tabs that rely on timelines. So the cut page, the edit page, and the Fairlight page all use timelines. Use timelines to work.
Gotcha.
If you think colorists and VFX artists work on one clip at a time. So you'll see, again, we can show this. When you're doing things like color correction, you can have two colorists working on the same timeline at the same time because it locks a clip to a user, not an entire timeline.
Okay, so you could have, you could be editing while James colors.
Yes.
But you couldn't be editing while James does an audio mix.
No. Well, again, we're going to show workflows how you can get around that because there's things like nested timelines. But yes, what it doesn't allow you to do is it won't allow me to edit and James to do his audio on the exact same timeline. Because it just becomes a bit too messy in the workflow. So as you can see on here, because James owns this timeline now, you can see he's still in it at the moment. Because he owns it, the playhead's grey. So me being in the project, I can preview it. You know, I can scroll through and preview what he's done. But I can't make any changes. So I can't move the clips around. I can't delete anything because he's the owner of it.
But you can still view it. So you could still, while he's working on it, he could give you a call and say, you know what, so just jump into this, give this a watch for me. What do you think?
Yes.
You know, that still works.
Exactly that. And that's what it's designed for.
That's cool.
So again, James can message me to go, okay, yeah. But then what happens then, you've got to factor in the client. So, you know, for a lot of you doing the work, you're going to have editors, colorists. But what you don't want to do, especially if you're doing, dare I say, like corporate videos, you may not want want to have to instruct the client how to open Davinci Resolve and download all the media. All they want is to go, this option to go, can we just like log into something and view it?
Yeah.
And so we can do that. So what I can now say to James is, yeah, I'm happy with the edit. And we've got a messenger down here. So again, we've got active messaging. So again, I can click on this, and we are not camera crew at the moment.
Yes, again, I forgot about this.
We're going to do edit suite. So I'm going to say to James, looks good. Time for client review. And I can ping that to him. And then James is going to go back and he's going to show you how you can get it to the clients as well for review.
Okay, yeah, so if we go back to my screen now, and I can show you from my point of view. So again, obviously we can communicate lots of different ways. We could have a voice chat going or something like that, but we do have the little chat client. So yeah, I get Simon's message here. I can see it read, and then I can see he sent me the message. Okay. And yeah, so I'm in this timeline, and I'm in a position now where we can use another section of Blackmagic Cloud, and when we mention presentations, to get a review of this and get a little bit of interactivity without, as Simon says, exposing the client to the whole bones of our edit here. So yeah, we're going to say that this is in a position ready to edit, and there's a couple of ways to send it up to presentations. I could do a quick export from the edit page itself, but on this occasion I'm going to do it from the delivery page. So if I find there is a preset to go straight to presentations, there we go. And let's just say we'll do it. It's ProAV test, and if I look up to upload to, I've created one earlier in that same Blackmagic Cloud interface that we saw at the beginning. Now I've only got proxies here, so I'm going to tick the box in this case because I don't have the originals to render from. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and do it from the proxies here, but it'd be perfectly adequate for our scenario of a quick review. So I've got my timeline there. I'm going to add it to the render queue and just set that going. And what that's going to do is do a quick render, which hopefully won't take too long, and then it's going to upload that that rendered file, then up to the cloud again, into the presentations area, where we can then, again by Blackmagic ID, we can allow people to review it in their own time. So there we go, it's rendered, and now we can see in the interface there, it's uploading, and it's a fairly small, efficient file, so hopefully it won't take too long. There we go. Right, and that's now uploaded to presentations. So it's in a scenario now where anyone that we invite through that presentations interface can now review it. So did you want to show the client side of that?
To show the client side of it. So again, yeah, if I now go back into the actual web browser, I can go into presentations. And as you can see, we've got the ProAV webinar, so we can just click on that. Okay, you can use my camera, I suppose. Yeah. So here we go, and here is the timeline that James has uploaded. So as you can see, I've gone in.
Sorry, are you now logging in as someone who's working on the project, or are you logging in as a client?
So I'm logging in as someone who's working on the project. However, you can give basically what the client needs is a Blackmagic ID, and that's it. Yeah. So admittedly, again, I know even for some clients, they're not allowed to, use IDs. So what we do have is people that just set up like default email addresses. So they might have 10 Google mail addresses that they've registered with Blackmagic Cloud. And then they say to the client, okay, click on, you're invited to a presentation, log it, basically
log in as
log
123 at gmail.com.
Yeah, 123 Gmail. Yeah, password is password. Click on presentations, and then they will be faced with this screen.
I see. Yeah. But ideally, your client would make themselves a Blackmagic ID with a free account.
Yes. Yeah. So again, the client can. So as you can see, we've got this sort of, as you can see James and I in here on the interface.
That's what our webinar, this whole stream would look like if we just did it on the webcam.
Yeah, if you just did it on the webcam. So now what we can do, obviously, you can have face-to-face, and I can start to scrub through this, and now we've got images for client review. So again, we can scrub through.
So this is designed to sort of invite them into a Zoom call or whatever, effectively, and give them a talk through the presentation.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, as you said, it's a good description of what people do is go, we'll do Zoom and do screen share, but you kind of go, no, you've got the sort of, as you say, Zoom kind of camera interface, but then the actual project. And the thing that we love about this as well is there's a sync option. So if I click on Start Sync, because what you don't want to do is you've got several clients viewing this interface, they then all end up scrolling at the same time and going, oh, 4:57. Oh, hang on, I'm at 2 minutes, whatever. So you're going, right, we're all going to watch this together. So if I do start sync, everybody will be watching this at the same time. So as you can see, there we are playing this. And, from this, we can start to go through and start to go, well, that's all right. We need a better end shot in here. So if we go into markers, and the client then comes in and goes, add better end shot. Add marker. It'll add the marker in the presentation. So again, we're missing some graphics at the beginning. I can go. Hopefully I didn't have my caps lock on. So I can go graphics here, add marker. So, and again, other people can use markers. So again, James could go in with the same thing with this as well, and he could go and sort of add markers as well. So you can have multiple people adding markers to it. But again, it's linked to the timeline that we uploaded. So again, if I now just go back into Resolve,
those markers appear, do they?
So the markers should magically appear. I think, James, let me just reopen this timeline. I'll just close it out and open. Yeah, James, if you just pop off the timeline. There we go. And there we go. And I'm hoping now. Presentations. There we go. So there we go. So there are the presentation markers that we've added.
Very, very cool.
So yeah,
cool.
So for client reviews.
So that was obviously designed to sort of sit down with the client and talk them through
Yes.
it. If you don't want to do that and you just want to send them a link and say, just watch that when you next get time in the next 2 days and leave some comments for me.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yes, you can do. Yeah, you can sort of upload a presentation and say, yeah, here's a link, and they can just watch it. Yeah, and give you some feedback.
Fine. So you don't have to have the cameras on.
No.
Chat through all that kind of stuff. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we've had a few questions come in. Should we do these?
Yeah,
quickly?
absolutely.
It feels like a natural place to pause.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that, Tiddy Tackett says, how would plugins work across these collaboration projects, such as Katara 360, external VSTs, etc., especially on the iPad version?
So that is a very good question, because obviously the machine that adds the plugin is the only one that's got it. This is where you sort of go, okay, do you accept the fact that on other machines there's not going to be the plugin on it? You could do what a lot of people do with plugins, is to render in place. So Resolve's got a render in place. So, if you've got Boris Continuum, you've got all their lens flares, you can, just do as you say, a render in place and render them flat. It is again something that you've always got to bear in mind. It's a little bit of a workflow thing, whereby, yes, if other people don't have plugins, it's not going to show up on their system.
Yep. Makes sense. How would it work any other way, I guess?
Yeah.
Tech Life Media says, to add to that, what about power bins? My whole SFX library is in a power bin. Would that all sync too?
Yes, so anything that you add to a project. So with your power, it's a very good question, that actually. Rather than me sort of take a guess at what power bins does, that's something I'll investigate, because obviously power bins run across a multitude of projects, and it's not something you often use with cloud, but it is a very good, it's a good question. So maybe we investigate that at the end and see what happens.
We'll
rather
leave
than
it
me
as a comment
going, is it going to make,
the video. So check back the video after we're finished. We'll leave something down in the comments once we have an answer. Ray is saying, would you grade proxy media or replace the proxy files with original camera media first? And Tech Life Media has jumped back in there with always grade with originals. But I guess that's an interesting talking point, isn't it? Because yes, for a proper grade, you should absolutely be working with originals and all the rest of it. But for a very quick, I'm absolutely rubbish at this, James, could you just log on and give me a really quick, something I'm not looking at log or whatever? You could do a quick remote grade just with the proxies, and then
Yes.
presumably it would just update on my machine, and I've got the camera originals,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So again, this is the beauty of how the cloud workflow works, is because remember, James has just got the proxies, but he could grade the proxies. And again, the beauty is in Resolve, the way we do why we do our proxies like we do, because we sort of put the proxies alongside the camera originals, because then it's this seamless ability to swap between the two. I mean, we could even do this. So what I'm going to do is I love going off piste. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color manage this. So we've got an array of different files in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color manage these very quickly.
Talking about color management.
Yeah, I'm talking about color management. So I'm going to ask I'm going to put James well outside of his comfort zone now. And James, do you just want to, very basically, the first clip in this timeline, do you just want to grade this? So James is going to grade the proxy.
James, do you want to grade it?
Right. Okay.
If not, just use one of the like film LUTs and just dial it back. It'll be fine.
I'm literally going to adjust a parameter before I get everyone
Turn it
in the room
purple.
and online screaming at me. So I'm literally on the first clip, and I'm literally going to just push the gain a little on the towards the pink there. So I've adjusted a shot there, and
Excellent.
it's probably better for everybody if we leave it at that. Yeah.
So, as you say, you can even do this. Yeah, you're right, Carl. Is if somebody's going, right, I can just get a sort of a look with a proxy. So, as you can see, James is on this first shot here. Now, again, because I've got the proxies and the camera originals, I can just toggle between the two. And this is the beauty when you're collaborating, because I can have a timeline of camera originals and James can have a timeline of proxies, but they still work together, which is why we do our proxies like we do. So now, James, if you just click off that first clip onto something else. So now you can see as soon as James releases that clip, so you can see he's locked into this clip here, so I won't be able to do anything with that. But you see the first grade that he's did, I've got a little refresh symbol, and if I refresh that, there we go.
Beautiful grade.
There's a beautiful grade. Nice.
Very cool.
So yes, you can even say to somebody, look, can you just give me an idea of what the clips might look like? And then on your system, you just flick to using camera originals, and the grades will be applied across. So yeah, you should in theory always grade on your camera originals. But as you say, sometimes with workflows, you just want to.
I suppose, let's say you want to be, you've got. Again, let's use the example of here. We've got this computer behind me. We've connected to big local storage, very fast storage. All the camera originals on there. That's got a nice grading monitor. That's got the Davinci panel. That's the one that we're going to grade on. But I'm going to work at home tomorrow, so I just want to put my assembly edit together on my laptop. Yeah. So with this, upload all the proxies. I download the proxies on here. Can be grading. I didn't even have to do any of that downloading here. I can just do it all at home. Yeah. All on that. Get my assembly edit in place, and then the next day when I'm in the office, just
absolutely, yeah,
it's all there on that computer. It's all straight away. And from my camera originals.
Yeah, and that's as you say, that's how a lot of people sort of collaborate with themselves. Is they'll sort of do grades at home on their laptop and go, well, when I go back into work, it'll all be there. I've just got to maybe make some tweaks to get it to exactly where I want it to be.
Cool.
Because interestingly enough as well, when it comes to sort of grading like that as well, is if you want people to see your grading, because we're talking about presentations. If you want people to see you grading, we've also got remote monitoring. So, if I've got the camera originals, but people actually want to see what the grade is actually looking like, we've got something called remote monitoring. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remote back out to James's machine. I think I'm going to try and remote monitor. So you can remote monitor to other iOS devices. So you can do it to an iPad. You can do it to an iPhone. You can do it to another machine that has a DeckLink or Ultra Studio device, so a desktop video device. So again, if you wanted, as you say in here, you've got a great monitor in here. If you've got a DeckLink into that monitor, I could remote monitor into your system and you watch it on your full, grading machine.
Great. Yeah.
And it's very clever. So again, this is another facet that is amazing. So again, if I just go into remote monitoring here, what it will do is it'll say, okay, how do you want to do this session? Now, the video codec, obviously, it's streaming, so you are never going to get a huge, a massive uncompressed 444 file. Admittedly, if you are on a machine, if you're on a PC that has a modern NVIDIA GPU, it'll do H.265 444. But for monitoring, for a lot of people monitoring, doing things like H.265 420 10-bit is enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the session, and basically what I get is I get a key. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to copy the key, and then what I'll do, James, I will just jump into Skype.
There we are.
I'll just hide my Skype screen. So I've got a key, and what I will do is I'll just drop it into Skype wherever you are. There we go. So there's the key. So again, you can share it through Skype or send it to somebody in an email.
Text it or whatever, yeah.
I'll just quit out my Skype so it doesn't keep interrupting.
Okay, and now I can, I've got this key over here, so I can show you from my point of view. Let me just quickly copy this before I lose it. There we go, there's the key. Shrink that down. So I'm seeing, again, we quite often show this on an iPad or a phone just because it's a really nice, you immediately get a second or a third screen just from using your pad for this. But it's easier to show you in this example on the app here on the machine. So this is just a Davinci remote monitor app. So I'm just going to paste that key in, check that it works. And then Simon will see a little pop-up on his screen saying that I'd like to connect. And then, again, now obviously we generally have this full screen, or you'd have it on a separate monitor, but it's probably easy to see it running in a window here. But yes, as Simon moves and starts grading or navigates through the clip, we should see that being applied to my screen. And the response is actually, it tends to be pretty snappy.
Yeah. You're trying to do a very neat and careful grade there, Simon. Let's do big. You're looking at two. Everyone at home is looking at two windows side by side. Let's do big.
Let's do big.
Yeah.
You can see it. Let's go crazy.
There we go.
But as James said, you can see it's quite responsible. If I kind of go around the colours here, you can see it is responsible, and it'll do HDR, and so it'll even if you want to do HDR grades, it'll trigger your iPad into HDR mode.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's nifty.
There's lots of nifty things with this. One of the things I love about this is if you do social media delivery, you're never quite sure what something looks like on a phone. Because even if you kind of do a portrait timeline, on your viewing monitor, it'll still be kind of this little weird letterbox thing. But if you use remote monitoring for your phone and you use portrait,
you just turn your phone.
You turn your phone and you can actually monitor. So if you're not quite sure about how things are framed on the phone, you just use the remote monitoring as your phone output, and you can get everything framed exactly. And it's a good way if you do a lot of social media delivery and you need to get colours absolutely spot on, like fashion houses do, and dare I say people that do curtain samples, for example. They're going to need the colours to be absolutely spot on. They can sort of grade using the remote monitoring on a phone, and now if somebody opens that on their iPhone, they're going to go, okay, that's the result that they're going to get. Yeah. It's just, again, one of these uses where you go, oh, that's really quite clever.
That's clever. And so with all of this, I would sort of want to put in perspective in terms of where it sits in the pricing on this. That stuff is just included in Resolve, is it?
It's just free.
That's just there.
That's just there. So the remote monitoring is free. The one thing, you do need Davinci Resolve Studio if you want to use a desktop video device. So if you want to come into a system and actually, use an output monitor, then you do need Davinci Resolve Studio for that to happen. You can't do that with the free version. But for monitoring on iPad and phone and stuff, and I think even for your just James's preview on his laptop, you can, that's just included.
Included, and not even just including the studio, including the free.
Yeah.
Very cool. And back to, now that we know what each of those editing things, to clarify with the payment things again, you would have been able to do all that remote editing stuff with just that £6 a month project library stuff, other than the sharing.
Yeah, other than the sharing media. So with the project library, yeah, I think the remote monitoring. I think you just need a cloud account. I don't
That's
think
right.
I don't
Same
think you
with
even need
presentations.
a.
You get free presentations with your cloud, with your basic account as well.
Yeah, with your
And
free account.
That minimal amount of
Yeah.
storage, that basic amount of storage, is enough for plenty of presentations. So,
Absolutely.
and this is where it gets quite interesting for me, because it just opens up so many different possibilities. You know, so we've gone from sort of this review, sort of somewhat interactive review with being able to leave markers, and then we've gone to what Simon just did there, this totally immediate, non-interactive review where we're literally just watching his screen. And of course, if we think a bit in parallel, you know, my background's audio, so I would historically be at the end of the chain with this sort of thing, and I just have to react to whatever flattened video file we got sent. Whereas you saw with that live refresh, you know, I get a refresh every time a grade's there. If I was doing something, and in my dubbing suite I've got a director with me and I've got reasonable monitoring, you know, reasonable picture monitoring, I can then see all these grades update one by one as they come in. So from a client point of view, they get to see all these changes ripple out immediately, rather than me sitting there with sort of yesterday's print of whatever it is, you know, with none of the changes there. We can literally see a shot and refresh it and see the current grade in seconds. And that's just, I mean, you just couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, as you say, and it's so we kind of get to that point where you go, right, so what we've done is we've done the client reviews, they started to see the grade. And then, you know, what happens if you want to start going a step forward now? So we need to make changes to the edit. And again, this is the true collaboration, because now what we've done, we need to make some changes to the edit. James needs to start working on some audio, and I want to start grading. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stick with edit 00 here, our initial timeline, and I'm going to start grading this. But what James is now going to do, he's going to start to go through and make some changes to this timeline, and also start to add bits to it. But again, sort of so you don't, again, it's this sort of a workflow element, if you like, is we could work on the same timeline at the same time, but we don't want to change the original edit, because guaranteed as soon as you do that, the client goes, oh, I like the first one you did, and you've already overwritten it.
Gotcha.
So what happens is I'm going to continue to work on this one, but James is actually going to duplicate and continue to edit. So yeah, you're going to sort of add some audio as you go.
Yeah, I'll given what we're doing today, I'm going to keep it very simple. Yeah, and what I could actually do, I could mention about how I could work with it as a nested timeline. So because as we said, only one person can make change actively to a timeline at one point and at a time, and obviously that's a good thing. You know, it would be anarchy if not. But there is a point where a project will split and a few different things happen at once. And as I just mentioned to you, you know, obviously audio, generally you'd get your files and you get a flattened movie that you'd then be working to, and then you get a lot of updates, whereas we can sort of skip all that and stop working a bit earlier. And one way we can get around that is by using nested timelines. And what that is a timeline within a timeline, and it gets a bit Inception here if we go too deep into it. But I thought if we just do a very simple example. So again, I'm going to blatantly cheat and just import something, but I think that will make it clear. So I've got a simple timeline on my screen now, which just has some music on, but we're going to assume that I've taken my time to select the right music, line it all up and everything. So if I go to my copied timeline here, and I've got a free track here, and I'm going to select this track. In fact, I'm going to do it in the comfort of my beloved Fairlight page here. What I'm going to do is on this track, I'm going to add that timeline in as a nested timeline. And what we see, it looks like I've added a clip. in there, and there's my music lined up with the start of the interview here. But what's actually happening here is that that's a timeline that's presenting the complete audio from this separate audio timeline. It's presenting that to the main timeline, and the beauty of that is that then changes can be made to the original timeline, and I can still start adding more effects and things like that to my audio timeline independently of what the editor's doing. So again, this is where it does sort of spring into 3 dimensions at this point. And again, you know, we could spend a couple of hours just talking about workflows with this, but the critical part is that we have a link between these timelines, so they're working together, and then finally at the end stage we can decompose this timeline and group them all together at this point, and then we have a master timeline. And there's also, again, you know, this is where people start thinking, and all right, what if it's something episodic or a long project that you want different editors to work on something part of the same production? So again, anytime there's that need for people to collaborate together, there's always a way to do it, whether it's having different timelines or nesting within and having a master timeline for them all. And that's quite fun. We've really enjoyed sort of digging into this workflow stuff and working out all the different ways that people can work together. So I am going to also import a timeline with all the changes on.
Before you do that, Ray's left a question saying, if the network goes down, can locked timelines and bins, etc., be unlocked manually to the locked timeout eventually? I'm not sure what he means about locked timelines there.
Okay, so I think what he means is, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, when somebody's selected on a timeline or a bin, it basically locks it to the user.
Yes.
Not currently. So basically, if somebody leaves a timeline open in the project, for example, you can, you know, it can be left sort of locked to that user. Again, we were saying it's sort of a workflow thing, as you know, as you'd have with any project, with any post-production, you'd have an organized workflow, and it's just having things like unlock. So can you see at the moment, James is on a bin called unlock. So what you do is, you know, you just sort of have a rule to go, right, anybody...
Just show us that again, your screen.
Oh, sorry, yeah, just show my screen again. So we've got this tiny bin here. Can I maybe just stretch that out a bit? James and I have got this habit of having an unlock bin. So again, you know, you'd have workflows with any post-production said workflow, because, you know, this is why you do copy of one. That's part of a workflow. With this, we have a workflow which is just an unlock bin. So at any point you go, right, just click on the unlock bin and close whatever timeline you have open. So just click on the tab, and that's it. It unlocks everything for everybody. So yes, it's not totally sort of, it relies on, people following some rules. So it is collaboration, but you've still got to be relatively organized in how you do things. Normally, though, if somebody's sort of away, as soon as somebody shuts the project down at their end, and if they close the Resolve project, that's it. It'll unlock absolutely everything. So don't worry about,
what if they were in the middle of it but lost internet access?
So
their Wi-Fi goes.
Admittedly, if you lose internet access, what you will get an error message, because obviously what you're doing with the cloud is you're constantly referring to the project in the cloud. So if you lose internet access, there's sort of workarounds to it. One thing I always recommend people to have switched on in your preferences is under user, we have project save and load. So you can have project backups, but also timeline backups. So you can see I've got project backups and timeline backups. So at any point, obviously live save has to be turned on for cloud.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you can have project backups or timeline backups. So again, timeline backups is what a lot of people use, and as you can see, it puts it in this folder, but again, it can be anywhere, but you have that on your local machine. Then at any point you kind of go, okay, my internet's totally gone. but you'll have a timeline backup, and also all your media is already on your system. So what you can do is open up the timeline, work on your local database, reconnect the media that's in that project folder, work on a local database, and then maybe once you've finished editing or grading, export that DRT, and then when you're able to get back online, import it into Resolve in the cloud, and it'll just update that timeline.
Gotcha.
So admittedly, this actually features in quite well because, you know, what happens if you've done changes to a timeline? So, for example, you did an edit, but then you've been grading, or you were halfway through an edit, and what you did is you take the rest of the timeline and, you know, you complete it. Yes, you could import the timeline into the cloud and you've got the completed edit, but maybe it's the fact that you've graded part of it. So what you wanted to do was sort of take the second half of the timeline you edited locally and drop it onto the existing timeline in the cloud. So this is kind of what happened with James and I, in the fact that he wanted to make some changes. I started to color grade edit 00, but James, have we got edit 01 in there as well?
Edit 00 audio, sorry.
Is it? Okay,
so I didn't make that, but that has also incorporated a picture change or two.
Okay, excellent. So as you can see in here is I have my timeline, and as you can see, I've started grading it. I've got some very, very contrasty grades in, so you can see them, but I started grading this timeline.
Very talented, Simon.
It is, look at that, that's an amazing grade. You almost can't make out, in fact you can't make out a sweatshirt from the background. Crunchy. So again, you know, at this stage, I started grading this, and again, you know, what we're saying is this can easily be applied to your project library. You know, you going offline and then going right. I'll work on the timeline locally and then send it back. But what I want to do is just apply the changes that I made to the timeline that's in the cloud that's got the grades on it. So you can even do that as well, because if I right-click on the timeline that James has been sort of re-editing, I have an option that says compare with current timeline. Oh. And then what I get is this sort of timeline comparison, and it shows me the differences. So admittedly, where the lines are really wide and really narrow, it means I'm missing a clip in there. So if I just accept the change, you can now see I've got James's audio. Do some graphics in here. And as you can see, one thing I can start to do is just accept some of the timeline changes. Oopsie. Oh, I know why. Yeah. Sorry, it's that one there, isn't it? Mm-hmm. There we go. So now everything's in line. Perfect. So gotcha. Close. So now what I've done is I've accepted the changes that James made, but my horrible crunchy grades are still on there. So again, there's this other feature whereby...
Oh, how interesting.
Whereby, if you're sort of part of the way through something, or, you know... And again, this comes into the true collaboration. So... If you, for example, people working on episodic TV, or you are working on corporates where, I don't know, they do a range of, like for yourself, they do a range of cameras, but you might have three editors. I'm going to edit camera A, you're going to edit camera B, camera C. You all have the timelines, and then you could use the timeline comparison and just drop the changes into each one.
Or if there's a disagreement, you know, one of you wants the intro this way, one of you wants the intro that way, you could duplicate it twice, each do what you think it should be like, and then sit down as a team, decide which one, and update the main one.
Yes,
from the one that you like,
and you can gang the plate in, you know, in there as well. I've accepted the changes now, but if we do a compare with current timeline, it'll just be the same. But you've got the option to say sync playheads.
So you can sit and
so what
look
you
at
can
it together.
actually do. Let me just hide the let me come out of this thing. If I hide the inspector, because it'll give me a 2-up view. So now what I can do is if I say compare with current timeline. And then I say, if I do sync playheads. So now when I drag them, I get the two timelines. And as you can see, James's version didn't have the grades on. Mine did. So
I've just noticed that that pink and they're just the top of a couple of clips. So if you scroll down on that...
sorry, if I scroll down on
that
here...
That is a visual representation.
That is the actual timeline.
I see.
Sorry, I should have shown
I was
that.
looking at that thinking, how do you read that?
What's he doing? But there we go. So that is just everything. So... Yeah, again, it's this flexibility of going, yes, you know, because of the timeline locking, but you've got the flexibility of applying changes. And even if, you know, I'm actually working in here, this is actually a nested timeline. So in theory, James could still be in the Fairlight page mastering this while I'm re-putting the edit together. So yeah, it's this true collaboration, and I think Davinci Resolve is unique with this.
Yeah.
This ability to have multiple users all working on the same project at the same time. You know, we've not mentioned Fusion, but you know, if you want to go do
well,
some...
we just had a question about Fusion. Tony Tech says, can you play back Fusion graphics without choking out the computer? And I guess what that's referring to is cache files. I mean, what happens with that and caching and all that kind of stuff?
So the caching, when it needs to cache, will be done locally. Or actually no, because we can cache into the cloud. So you can, if you want, it'll cache into the cloud. So let me see if I can get something to cache. I tell you what, let me do a scaling. I think it's going to put the cache locally at this stage. But there is an ability, because my master settings, yeah, the cache, yeah, it's going to put it in the cache location. Let's give it a go. Let's actually give it a go. So again, if I've got some effects in here, it would help. So, you know, I've got a CCTV effect and I apply it. Admittedly, I've got to say the Fusion effects are really good now. So that should be, and render cache set to user. You should now let me cache. There we go. So now it's going to cache that. Now I think with this, what it's actually going to do, it's going to cache the file. But again, this is interesting because it'll show us what's actually happening in the cloud as well. So come on. There we go. So we've got the full. There we go. We've got the full blue file. So now, again, if you ever want to see what's happening in your cloud storage, if you just go back into the actual browser in the cloud and I click on this Blackmagic storage window, click on this storage window here, and there's the ProAV webinar. Here's the folder structure for everything. No, it's not doing. So it is actually still caching on the machine.
So in this example, if you now wanted to play back that, you would just have to cache it on your machine. You just cache it separately.
Yeah.
But this is
You
something.
don't need to share cache.
No.
This is something that comes up, and there's obviously lots of different ways around this when you think it through. And you know, the example earlier, there was a question about plugins, and you know, audio plugins are a classic example of this, because why on earth would anyone else have the same set of plugins that the audio person will have? And again, you know, because it handles new media, you know, when you generate new media, and because it's essentially seamless like that. I'm not dodging the Fusion side of things, but you know, what we do in Audioland is we just render that clip on top of it as a layer. So you'd have the rendered clip on top. I'd then disable the processing and the plugin, have it loaded but disabled, so it could be edited at any time if there are any changes needed. But then everybody would just get that new rendered clip automatically as part of the project. So they would hear then my process clip, and it would essentially be as if they had the plugin, but I'd still have the ability to make changes, and I'd just do a quick update each time. And presumably, I'm no Fusion here, but presumably, you know, there's similar ways like that if you're thinking it through. Yeah,
it's exactly the same thing. So, you know, if you had a, you know, this is just a Fusion effect on here, but again, if I copy this clip up, I'm just going to get rid of the fade in, and I'll just turn the render cache off for a minute. So again, yeah, it's a sort of a common workflow. What you may do with this, you know, if you've got a really heavy effect, what I'd probably do is choose to do a render in place, and then basically, yeah, what it's going to do, I could maybe render at source resolution. No, it's fine. So we'll do it in here. So if I do a render in place, it'll say, okay, where do you want to save this? Or we could be really fancy here. This is being quite fancy. So I could get this to automatically upload to Blackmagic Cloud. It wouldn't necessarily sync with the project.
But it would be there to be accessed.
It would be there to be accessed if somebody wanted to download it. So this is another clever bit. So remember we spoke about the media folder. Mm-hmm. So this is a mirror of anything that.
So if you just plop any file in there,
You got it.
I see,
If you pop
okay.
any file in there, it will automatically upload to Blackmagic Cloud. Now, because I'm not putting it back into the Resolve project, I'm not pulling it into the Resolve project, it will just sit in the cloud. But at any point, if somebody looks at the effect and goes, oh, this is going to take ages, you could actually go and download and just go into the cloud and download it. So let me show you how to do this. So if I do new folder, in fact, what I'm going to do, so it doesn't take ages to upload.
that's really interesting.
What I will do, I'll just do it as a proxy, and we'll just do. I'll include video effects. So if I'll do that, and then, as you say, on the desktop, under the ProAV webinar, what I'll do is I'll create a new folder called Render in Place. Make sure that is. No, I want it to be in there. Did you change that? Sorry, that's my fault. Let me try that again. Let me go into the ProAV and then do
It
new
doesn't
folder.
let you.
Render in Place. So I'm going to do is I'm going to create that folder. So that is within the ProAV webinar folder. So I'm just going to open that, and now it's going to render that media out. Done. So now that file is in there.
And so now on yours, do you get it in your timeline, but it's media offline, and you've got to reconnect it, or will it automatically know that it should be in that same folder?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Probably the
Void
simplest way
discovery.
around that.
Let's find out. Let's see if it's there.
So has that synced to the...
I think it is. I think the upload is done.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yours is synced. So mine hasn't yet. So if I was to look on my screen, I see I've got the project open, and I'm just waiting for it to kick in and do its sync. So that's probably the...
Let me come out.
factor.
Let me come out the timeline. Let me close the timeline down.
Right, okay, I'm going to just pause it and resume it just to see if we can get it to sync a little quicker. But straight away, so let's just open the timeline perhaps on my system, and we'll see what we see. And that was on the...
It was edit 00 again.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. You've got it.
So I do have the clip. Yeah. And the proxy, has it done it so quickly? Yeah, has it done it so quickly we missed it?
Yeah. Sorry. It's put the file because it's
there
actually
we go.
rendered
Yes,
the file
looks-
into the project, so it's
Yeah,
there.
synced,
it's in the project,
synced
yeah.
1 minute ago. It hasn't refreshed where it says synced 18 minutes ago for the project, so slight display thing which confuses us. But yes, 1 minute ago it downloaded that render, and there it is. So I see that effect on my edit timeline. So that wasn't too painful.
In terms of those folders for each project,
Yeah.
is there any way of having in your Blackmagic storage a group of files that are commonly used files that can be accessed across multiple projects?
Yes. So, well, you have something for your own files, but
Because the example I'm thinking of is for us, for our videos here, you know, we have a folder that is full of the ProAV logo in the right place and the animated intro and all of that kind of stuff, which we use on every single project that we do. So I just wondered if there was any way of having that.
not in the cloud currently. There's obviously things you can do. So as we're saying is, admittedly, I did a render in place, so it adds the render in place to the project. But for example, if you wanted to add sort of a graphic file to the cloud, but it not be in any Resolve project, So again, I'm sure I've got something else on here. So I've got some
LUTs would actually be another really good example of using it. So I've got my collection of LUTs. I just want it accessed on my Blackmagic cloud and store them on there, so that then whatever computer I'm on, I can stick my.
I suppose the thing is, if you have to sort of think backwards and think that the cloud storage is the ultimate sort of mirror for anyone anywhere who's going to need to collaborate with you, and so that's why it keeps all the media on it. So as we know, if you drag that in locally, it's not going to duplicate it on your system. It's going to make the aliases, so that's fine. Yeah. But then there's still that possibility that someone else won't have any of this. And so I suppose, generally that's going to be duplicated. Now, obviously with things like LUTs, they're not big files, so it doesn't matter. So that might be, we drag in a bin structure at the start, and it might be as simple as dragging things in like that as your sort of starting place, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. So, admittedly, I've just got a graphic here, so I will mention stills as well in a minute. So, for example, I would go, if I put a folder in here called common, I'll do like shared graphics, say. Now I'm doing this totally outside of Resolve and sort of the traditional syncing. But what I could do is I could go, well, I want a shared graphics here and here, and I just drop it that gallery still in. Now, if I go to Blackmagic Cloud, what I go into here, I've got something called shared graphics. And if I click, there's the gallery, and it's available for download. This doesn't appear in any Resolve project, but it is a way of going, you could have, a project library.
Effectively using it as a Dropbox.
Effectively using it as a Dropbox,
fair enough.
So again, we've had some feedback about this because people, using templates.
It'd be nice to access that folder inside any projects that you create from scratch.
Absolutely.
That'd be really nice.
Yeah. As you say, we've taken, as we said, I think cloud has so much potential because it's just evolving so quickly. So these things where people are saying is, well, it'd be good if we could have your templates that you use, shared folders in the cloud. Yeah, we're kind of listening to customers' feedback.
I'm sure you are. Okay, we are about 35 minutes over time because there's so much to talk about here, which is absolutely fine. We can carry on going for a little bit longer if we want to. But is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover inside this?
Yes, the one thing was the thing I talked about at the beginning, which was cameras.
Fine, yes.
Because the camera basically just dials into the workflow that we've been doing. So it's good to understand what happens with cloud first and then how the cameras fit in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sort of a bit of a way you can actually see the camera. So what I've done is I've got my camera app on my phone here that I've just got connected, so you can actually sort of see the camera app. Now I'm just going to shuffle back a bit. So again, in here, if I go into the media, you can see it needs you to log into Blackmagic Cloud. So this is where a lot of people not come unstuck, but they sort of go, I want to record something, and shouldn't I see it drop into a Resolve project? And you go, yes, it works like that, but you need a project library and some storage because the cameras always use the Blackmagic Cloud storage. Yep. Don't be wrong, there are some fancy ways of maybe using Dropbox with a cloud store, but primarily, the cameras are using Blackmagic Cloud storage in the cloud, and that's what they're looking for. And it has to be a project library. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log in, and I'm really going to cheat here. I'm just going to use my pre-built password. So here we go. So I'm just going to log in with that. Again, ignore this just for a minute. This is anything that we have been doing so far is using a personal Blackmagic Cloud account. There's something called organizations, but this may be a conversation for another day. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in. So
maybe we do a 5-minute explainer or something.
Yes. A 5-minute explainer video of what. So as you can see in there you can see there's the ProAV webinar. So I can just select the ProAV webinar, and then when I go back into the camera, you can see just above the time code, it says ProAV webinar in the cloud. So you're kind of going, okay.
So you're just telling it where you're recording this into.
I am telling it where I'm recording it into. And again, we've got loads of settings in here. The one I'm just going to double check that I'm uploading is just proxies only. I'm just doing proxies only.
Yep.
Again, so not to rinse the bandwidth. So again, I'll film our nice little pot plant just here, just for a second. Beautiful. So if I then stop that. Now, if I just hide that and go back in, what should be doing, the camera should be uploading it. That should be done. And now can you see on my screen, oh, it's come and gone. There was a little refresh, but there is a camera uploads folder. And if I click on that, there's the file. Done.
Yeah. I mean, that couldn't be any quicker. And that, obviously, you've just done that on your phone. But if you were doing that on any of the Blackmagic cameras that you brought up at the beginning, that would just automatically work.
Just automatically work. It's available for anybody who's in the project. So James will have the file on his. Also, as well, what we've done with the camera app and the files now as well, we've got live sync. So it'll support the growing file. So that's amazing. You can be on set and have Resolve the other side of the world and filming, and you can see the proxy file growing. So, you know, you can see it growing, and then people can, you know, you can even send messages to the camera crew. So even in the messaging, you've got messages to camera crew that would appear on the Blackmagic camera or on your phone to go, it's slightly overexposed. You need to just knock it down a bit.
Very cool. And there's no way of doing this with anything other than those cameras. You know, you can't have it in a video assist at the moment or anything like that. There's no.
No, it's just Blackmagic cameras, but also the camera app, and obviously we've now done the camera app for Android as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
amazing. Okay, do we want to explain very quickly what organisations is that side of things?
Yes.
Not an in-depth one.
I'll explain organisations very, very quickly. So, oops, sorry. I've just knocked out my HDMI cable.
There we go.
There we go, we're back. There we go. So you've got this thing called organisations now. So what organisations allows you to do, as you can see, it's still got things like project servers and storage, but also it's much more manageable because you can have members. So what you can have is you can have a multitude of members that you can assign to certain project libraries. You can also have dedicated project servers. So as a personal one, you just use, you know, a standard Blackmagic server. It's part of another server. But if you want kind of real, if you want lots and lots of people, you want hundreds of users going into this server, maybe having a dedicated server is going to get you better performance. So as you can see, you know, if you're dialing in 20 users, or you know, you want to go up to 120 users, all working into project libraries all at the same time, you know, if you're a massive multinational news corporation, for example, you might have everybody dialing in into project libraries and making videos. So with this, said it's for bigger organizations, it comes with a cost, but you can have a dedicated server, because I think this is, you know, with the project libraries, we've got 10 users, but with these you can have a lot more. But that's because, you know, you've got a dedicated server for it. But as I said, obviously that comes with a cost. But then also what you can also do is, you can say you've got cloud storage, but also you've got Davinci Resolve licensing as well. So the feedback we had from bigger organizations is collaboration is great, but if I work with a freelance editor, I want to give them a copy of Resolve Studio, but if I give them the license key, they just go take a photo of that and they can use that license key forever. So we had a lot of bigger organizations, and he was saying it's costing us £250 a time just to bring a freelance editor in. So that's a bit, we don't want to do that. So now you have the ability to rent a license. So basically what you can do with this is you can rent a number of licenses, and then in this window it will show you the licenses you have available,
and then just assign them to people.
Absolutely. So anybody with a Blackmagic Cloud ID, they can go, right, this cloud ID is assigned to this license, and at any point you can take it back off them. As you can see, again, like the cloud itself, it's rental, it's not.
Yeah, because of course this
subscription.
might confuse people, because I think people have heard Blackmagic talk an awful lot about this paid studio version and how they never want to make it a subscription, and how it's that price and you own it for life and all that kind of stuff. And then this you might see that and go, they're moving more towards a thing. But this is not for the average Resolve user.
It's not for the average Resolve user. You small, even kind of the super high end post houses don't use this because they only need kind of 20 licenses. So they go, it's much cheaper to just buy 20 licenses. This is for, again, like people who might have dealing with 50 freelance editors a day, so they can go, right, you have that license today and I'm going to take it back from you. Because the common question we get asked is, can I change a standard license into a cloud license or an organization's license? And you kind of go, why would you want to? You've already paid for it once. We don't want you to pay for it again. And also, we think the sort of pricing's fair because, as you say, at some point, if people are using organisations and just going, well, actually, we've assigned somebody a license for 10 months, we might as well have just given them a license. But also, again, it's good for bigger organisation when it comes to costing jobs, so they can go, well, the auditors need this server with this amount of people, with this amount of licenses. In organisations, you can cost that job exactly.
Okay, so that's the licenses, but in terms of just organisations versus the ordinary way of doing it, what's the turning point? Is it the 10 people thing that we talked about earlier? When do you cross from being...
I would say is even if you've got sort of... Because depending on your project libraries and what you're doing... I would say the crossover is when you yourself are managing, I would say 20 different people. That's when you could sort of start to look at organisations as the crossover point. Because again, the likelihood is you might have 5 or 6 editors. Like you guys here, you edit all your own stuff.
I'm managing it. There is one person managing it, but there's like under 10 of us. That kind of thing.
But at some point you might go, well, do you know what? We want to bring somebody in. We've got a load of editing. This webinar, you might want to bring somebody in to edit it.
Sure.
So, but you kind of go, we don't want to give them a license, but for 30 quid, it actually works. So you'd set up an organisation. So again, setting up an organisation itself is free. I've got one set up here. This July 24th is an organisation. I've not paid for it because I've not added anything to it. As soon as I start to add project servers, cloud storage, again, the cost is the same. Obviously, the project servers, you can see project library is a £5 a month. That's dead easy. So the pricing's pretty similar. It's only when you start getting into dedicated servers, a lot of storage, licenses, does the cost start to go up. So I would say is, if you're dealing with yourself and a couple of other users, or even up to the 10 people, having the private personal cloud account is enough. It's only said when you have to start managing quite a few people that organisation sort of comes into its own.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Okay, let's wrap it up there then. Sorry for people watching if that went on longer than people expected it to. There's a lot to talk about here, and I think I was also quite interested there because I think I will be moving all of us over to using this because I don't know, listen to you speak there, it's the sort of thing where you sit back and go, why haven't I been using that?
Yeah.
That just makes so much sense. So much sense.
But you can see what we mean. Like, to begin with, it can be quite intimidating. But when you see it working, going, so all the files are syncing, we're all in the same project, you don't really have to worry about too much what's going on in the background. I mean, because even the web interface is straightforward. You want to, again, I can show you want to delete any media or anything. You can just go in here and under the cloud storage, if you... I mean, these are in use, but I could actually just go in here. You can delete a project. If you delete the project library, so from in here, I can go in. I'm not going to do that now, but I can just go in and hit delete. And then from the media storage, once you've deleted something, you have these little crosses here. and you just click on those and it go, do you want to delete the media? And it's done.
I've just realised one thing we probably should touch on very quickly before we're
Yeah.
wrapping up is the actual physical products that you have of cloud storage, because I know that has confused some people. I know we purposely didn't want to focus on those because they can sometimes confuse the messaging
Yes.
a little bit. But obviously you make a fleet of Blackmagic cloud storage
Yes.
products, but they, you know, as we've just proved, are not needed for this.
Yeah.
How do they add to this very quickly? When are they useful?
So they're useful. Number one, the speed. They're incredibly fast. So you know, for those people who've been to the trade shows, you've seen like our replay system recording 10 streams of Ultra HD ProRes to these things, and there's absolutely no drop off at all. They support growing files. Also, as well as you were saying, is there is a sort of cloud sync, the cloud element. So we've got Dropbox and Google Drive. So you can say, right, this folder here, I want you to sync on the cloud store in Dropbox, and then you can just leave it running. There is, at the moment, it's still in beta, is still under sort of development within the cloud stores. We are still in development where people will see now in the interface, there's an option to choose a project. So you can actually choose a project in the cloud store. So the idea is, over time, is that this is still in development, that instead of having Resolve open, you can just say, right, this folder, I want to go up to there, and it'll upload it to Blackmagic Cloud, and then if anybody opens the project, it'll automatically download the media. But as I said, that's still something we're developing at the moment. So
cool.
The cloud stores, the cloud element at the moment is, if you use things like Dropbox and Google Drive, you've got a seamless sync, so you could have two cloud stores anywhere in the world that are identical. And again, the speed, the one thing that impresses most people about them, you connect them over 10 gig E, they're super fast.
Super fast, and it helps you get away from the camera. You know, everything you've just been doing here was on camera proxies.
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to get away from that camera proxies,
Yeah, yeah.
and you want to do it all in original media.
Absolutely.
Things like that are
Yeah.
what you're going to start to need.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's wrap it up there. Off topic question, but ASF has just put, when will the Pixis camera be available? I was wondering if it would come up, and they saved it till we were 40 minutes over time. There's no official line from Blackmagic yet, but all signs are pointing towards it being very soon. So hopefully the wait on Pixis and Assassin is not too much longer.
Yes.
But there is no official word yet on that. But that is a topic for another day.
Indeed.
Thank you both for that. That was enlightening. That was in depth, but very, very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us and letting us go on for this long.
No problem. Thank you all very much for watching. And of course, it goes without saying, if you want to purchase any Blackmagic products, head over to ProAV. Thank you for watching. I'll see you very soon. Bye.
my eye on the dance floor, eye on the door. Hey, a DJ, you like the way I sway? Gotta get it. I got the movement and the attitude. I got something you could do. You could play my favorite song, the one where the bass goes boom, 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 boom.
Lady, go!
1, 2, 3, 4. It's class, yeah. You're gonna shut up. Battle your battles, you got a talent. How to the cure? If it's trash, yeah, you're gonna take it out. Handle it rapidly, got the magic, you got it for sure. You could see what's in your child. Hi, hi, hi.
Lambo.